Hello and welcome to the Green Line, where we explore the heartbeat of agriculture, innovations, the people, the ideas shaping the future of food. Time and again, every day of the week when we get to discuss these things, I am pretty excited because it just means food, and who doesn't love food? Last week on the 19th of October, we celebrated the World Food Day, and of course you would see from the previous episodes that we went on the streets, we went to ask people what they thought good food was. Well, I was surprised that a few people were able to answer the questions correctly, while a few other people just food is food. Good or bad, food is food. But yes, I will always emphasize that the United Nations has a standard for good food. And here in Nigeria, we say a good food must contain at least 4 of the 6 classes of food. Let me know, are you implementing that in your daily diet? Of course, as always, we will start off with the word on the street and maybe a little bit of insight on what we are talking about today. Today's conversation is one that is super interesting and important that we talk about in the agricultural ecosystem. Of course, right after that, we'll get into the expert interview where we have our guests seated patiently waiting to be a part of this conversation. I'm pretty much excited for this one, and I hope that you are a part of it as well. Right after the interview, we take you down, spotlighting some of the innovations that are making waves, particularly in the agricultural sector. Right after that, we are out for the week yet again. It's always an interesting time being here in the studio, catching up with agricultural news and practices right here in the studio. Once again, this is the Green Line, and I remain your host every week, Martha Alu. From the soil beneath our feet to the tables across the world, agriculture is the heartbeat of Nigeria's future. Yet challenges persist: limited finance, outdated methods, policy gaps, and untapped opportunities. The Green Line is here to change that. A groundbreaking weekly television feature that connects policy with practice, farmers with markets, and innovation with impact. We dig deep into the full agricultural value chain, from land preparation to mechanization, financing, food preservation, exports, and beyond. The Green Line isn't just a show, it's a national development platform. Join me every Friday at 11 a.m. only on Rapid TV, Star Times channel 176, and online at www.rbnradiotv.com. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. It's still the Green Line right here on Rapid TV. And today, we turn our spotlight to a subject that sits at the very core of agricultural transformation, which is mechanization. In Nigeria, the level of mechanization stands at just 0.027 horsepower per hectare. That is barely 6 tractors for every 10,000 hectares of farmland, which is pretty short. Now compare that to the global benchmark of 1.5 horsepower per hectare, and you'll see why experts believe we're still farming with yesterday's tools in today's world. Yet the future of agriculture, our productivity, our food security, and our global competitiveness depends on how quickly we can bridge this gap. Now joining me today from the Netherlands is Mr. Andre Schaap, and he is an international agribusiness expert whose work has shaped mechanization and farm systems across continents. And together, we would explore what Nigeria can learn from countries that have successfully mechanized their farming sectors, and how technology, partnerships, and financing can drive a new era of agricultural efficiency. Welcome, Mr. Schaap. Mechanization is not only about tractors, and I'm sure that you know this, but it's a whole ecosystem on its own. Servicing is part of it, spare parts, operator training, all part of it, financing as well. Now in Nigeria, issues such as financing and maintenance are flagged as the major barriers in the full implementation of mechanization in the agricultural ecosystem. Now, what component of the support ecosystem would you prioritize? Let's say you are advising Nigeria's Ministry of Agriculture today as regards mechanization in agriculture.
If I would need to advise the ministers and the ministry, etc. The first and most important part is bring in some technical people, some expats that really have the knowledge,
Okay.
that worked in Africa for a longer period of time, so that you can that you have reliable people with hands-on
Experience.
experience,
Yeah.
etc.
Hmm.
Then the second part is send people out to be trained
Hmm.
to companies that supply the tractors,
Okay.
so that you have trained people. Get some trucks with because a machine never breaks down at the farmhouse itself. It always breaks down in the field. So you need to have repair trucks that they can go on location with experienced people who know how to repair a tractor. And if a tractor, for example, I've seen people repairing tractors on the land and taking half an engine out and putting it in the sand and wiping it a little bit clean. And 3 weeks later, the tractor is broken down again because half the engine is full of sand. So when you need to work on an engine, it has to come back to be picked up, brought to a workplace, a working facility, and in the working facility, where you have a clean environment, you do the refurb or the repairs. So those are very critical points. But the main point, I think, for the minister and for the president,
Okay.
is not only to look at people who have let's say a study background, but people who have done this before, who worked in Africa, set up small-scale farms, set up co-ops, and large-scale farms, and join hands together, because the only way to be successful is to have these, let's say, so-called co-ops, as the co-op will finally, be the benefit and the winner.
Now, we know that labor and productivity decreases and post-harvest losses increase when mechanization is inadequate. And this is the major problem we find, particularly in agricultural practices here in Nigeria. Now, I'll give you an example. A few years back, I went to a certain community, and it was just about community service and data collection about how these people practice agriculture and what the major pitfalls they experience during their practice is about. Now, when doing that exercise, we realized that almost everyone within that community are farmers. They farm the exact same thing. They have things like plantain, they have shea trees, they have very good quality of shea butters right within that community. Oh, a lot of things, fresh produce. Now, because they didn't have proper mechanization system, which is one now, and some other factors that of course deter the growth of agriculture in some of these areas, which is poor road infrastructure and poor fertilization, inadequate knowledge, and the application of some of those farm tools. They had the farm produce remain on the farm and they get bad. So almost everything that they have farmed during the entire period goes to waste because of, number one, these post-harvest losses that we are trying to highlight here. Now, with technology advancing globally, right, automation, robotics, IoT, how do we see low-cost mechanization, that's mini tractors, and local fabrication playing out for Nigeria over the next 5 to 10 years, particularly for the people in these rural communities?
Very good question, Marta. It is even, if you do a little bit of a step back, indeed, the post-harvest losses in Nigeria are humongous.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, we have here in the west in the Netherlands, let's say, we have special storage facilities for onions.
Okay.
And for potatoes. So we harvest the potatoes and the onions, they go in the storage. That storage is refrigerated, and the humidity is controlled. And this way we can start selling the potatoes 8 months later, 9 months later, still in a perfect condition.
Okay.
So that is one of the things that is currently absolutely not available in Nigeria. But the first steps would be also to have proper storage systems, like normal plastic crates to put products in. What we see is that the tomatoes are putting into baskets. The baskets are put into a truck, 3, 4 on top of each other, and by the truck that arrives, let's say from Kano or from wherever, arrives in the big city, you see that 50% of the tomatoes have been spoiled because we have the bad road infrastructure. So they're bouncing up and down on the truck. And then the bottom baskets, it's almost like water that comes running out, and all these tomatoes are bruised and defect. When you have proper crates that you can stack on top of each other, you already have resolved that problem. And there are plastic crates in Nigeria. So it's not a question that is not there, but it's more a question that it needs some small investments. People don't know how to cope with it, because you shouldn't need to set up a structure that, the supermarket you supply or the market buyer you supply gives you, let's say, 50 RMB or 100 RMB for the crate. And when he supplies back the crate next day or 2 days later, and then you swap the crates if it's in good condition. If it's defect, he loses that money. So it's quite simple to get a better product to market. The other problem is that there is a lack of local processing. So one of the things that we have been trying to push tremendously in the Nigerian agricultural space, because processing is not only the processing of the product from the farmer, it's adding value to the product. So those are very important things that need to be put in place, small scale processing. And again, there comes the co-op again, which I keep preaching, because it's the way to success. If you join hands together and then you have multiple communities in an area of, let's say, 100 kilometers, you can put up one processing facility that processes all the cassava, all the yam into flour or into starch, and there is offtake for it, because that's not the problem. We have the offtake even here in Europe. We can give people who are investing in this, we can give them an offtake agreement for the next 5 years at market, let's say the market prices that go up and down. So that's absolutely not an issue. So anything you process on a line is then directly taken off, and of course the country itself needs food. So if you look at how much waste there is in cassava, for example, because the cassava cannot be reached processing facilities in the right amount of time, and then the cassava after 48 hours start to fermentate and to rot, then it's spoiled. But bringing that on a shorter distance to a processing facility, making flour from that, you suddenly have your base product as cassava flour that you can toast for making your gari and all these kind of things. So it's a very beneficial part, because suddenly you have that added value because it's processed. It brings more money. So you can look with the farming co-ops and say, look, if you guys join hands, you supply the product, we process the product, and then we pay you a higher value as you would normally get as only the value for your product. A few naira per ton that you're earning, suddenly their earnings go times 4, times 5 for the farmers. And that's finally where you need to go, because that will give them the opportunity to send their kids to school. It creates more safety, and it's going to be much better for the country.
Okay, so how can we capitalize on this process market? Because the last time I had, in fact, the last episode of the Green Line, we spoke about ginger, and the resource person on that show said the almost exact same thing, talking about how he would normally export raw ginger from his farmland, and he would export it to Dubai, he would export to China, and then he got talking to one of these people, the market that he created over there, and he says, what do you guys even do with the ginger? Now, he was surprised to find out that they didn't actually sell the raw ginger. They processed the ginger and transported it to Europe, which was creating more resources and diversifying their income, especially when it comes to ginger. But how do you think that Nigeria can capitalize on this process market? Because it looks like we keep exporting the raw materials without exploring the options of processing these things here in Nigeria and exporting them as finished products that would fetch us more money, like you have said.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and that's I've been trying to push some projects.
Okay.
And it's about the investment. The banks are the biggest killers.
Okay.
The Nigerian banks have interest rates 24, 25, 26, 28, 32%.
Okay.
And then they want a payback of 5 years. If you need to do an investment of $10 million,
Okay.
you will not be able to pay back in 5 years' time, especially not with a 30% interest rate. These facilities should be on a 10-year payback at a maximum of about 10, 11% interest rate.
Okay.
Then it becomes a viable market. Then it is there is room for the people who are buying the line to process. We can provide them with an offtake for as it is in cassava starch or in cassava flour, and it's a very profitable business. That's the same if you then look at ginger. Ginger
Okay.
can be processed in different ways. Ginger
Okay.
can be dried by dryers. That's number one. Number two, you can press out the liquid. So you do a liquid, treat the liquid on a processing plant so it has a long shelf life, and then export it into the European and in the international market. Fruit, for example, I don't know how much tonnage of mangoes going to waste every year
Yeah.
in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Mango, papaya, pineapple,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. If you take the simple dryers, vacuum dryers would be ideal, but that's one of the ways to process. A normal dryer can also be possible. You can start drying and start to sell dried fruit. It can be in slices, it can be in cubes. Of course, the facility needs to be put up in a hygienic way.
Absolutely.
But if you do these kind of things, there is direct offtake market for it. It's an international commodity. When you do vacuum drying, you take literally all the moisture out of the fruit. You can grind it to a fine powder.
Yeah.
And there's a huge demand for powdered fruit, really organic powdered fruit.
Powdered fruit
That you can mix with the protein shakes for the sports people. It's if you do it with orange, you can use for the and others, some other ones also as a coating around tablets in the pharmaceutical industry. So there's different things you can do with it, and there's huge demands for that. But Nigeria could change in 10 years from with the right investments from a importing country in food to an exporting country in food. That is not reliant anymore on buying food into the country. There's gazillion amounts of money spent to import all different kind of foods, while it has the infrastructure, it has the land mass to do large scale projects, to farm projects, to farm products themselves at a very good price, but it needs the investments of processing on one side and mechanization on the other side.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Sharp. Now I have more questions. Do I go on? I still have more questions to ask.
Yeah, fine.
All right. Now in the Netherlands, we often see that mechanization integrated with precision. That is agriculture, data analytics, and service models. Machines hire for multiple farms. We see that also something that happens in the Netherlands. Now, what hiring and contract service? Because I know you did make mention of the fact that these tractors can be hired to these farmers. They should be given the requisite knowledge, and then the tractors can be hired to these farmers to use on their farmland, to cultivate their land, and then be returned back. Right. So, what hiring and contract service models could you viably could be viable in Nigerian's context, and what conditions must exist for them to succeed?
In general, it's quite simple. Plowing you do, as I say, 3 times a year. So why should you have your own large-scale tractor, 240 horsepower with a plow? All these farmers here in the Netherlands, they don't have that heavy equipment anymore. They hire the expert teams that come in, the mechanization companies, and you pay per hectare. So they come in, they have the knowledge, they have the equipment, they do the plowing. then at a later stage, for example, you need to go in and do your harvesting. For example, for maize or for grains and those kind of things, they come in with their big tractors, the big harvesting machines, and they just take out of the harvest. And you pay per hectare. You just pay a fee per hectare because you have a guy there on a tractor with the right equipment behind it, who knows how to operate it, who really is a specialist in that field. And this way, they save a lot of cost. The other part is that there's a lot of farmers who have now these days a probe in their land. That probe takes temperature from outside, humidity from outside. There's a weather for it. It is working with the satellite, so you have it sends through the weather conditions at that particular part of where you are. It senses the soil, how humid is the soil. Do you need to spray? Now these days there is even equipment that is even looking at how healthy your soil is at that moment in time, so the farmer knows, hey, wait a minute, I need to add some let's say fertilizers in during the growth season, because I see that my land is getting depleted.
Okay.
And those are very important parts that you have to look at. The knowledge of the farmer is very important. The farmers here in the Netherlands, they've been from a little child onwards, they've been with their father on the tractor. They've been looking with him on the land. He will take soil from the land, shows this to his son, and says, look, there's so many worms in the soil here, this and that. Can you see this? Can you see that? So from a young age of, they are being brought up on this farm and being taught. And that's one of the things that will give them, let's say, a big knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go to school, they go to agricultural education,
Mm-hmm.
Where they learn the newest methodologies and the newest tips and tricks. And it all becomes a knowledge thing. How can a small country like the Netherlands grow so much food and sell that into the European market? That's only because of the knowledge of the farmers. And of course, we do certain things in a certain way, and in Africa it should be maybe in a different way, but that does not matter. It's all becomes a knowledge game. And the robots, I think the first step in Nigeria is that we need to find jobs for people.
Yeah.
Because the unemployment is far too high. So why should we put in a robot while we can also provide somebody with a job? Because that robot will cost, let's say,
a lot more money.
two people, 4 years salary.
Yeah.
Then I'd rather put 4 people at work than put in a robot.
2 robots. All right.
What is important is specialized equipment. I've learned from my project, and it's especially on land clearing, etc. There's big equipment that needs to come in, but that's a different story.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Andre Shab, for indulging us today on this conversation. Thank you so much. We'll end the conversation. We'll end the conversation right here and now. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Now, it's so interesting to know that Nigeria has so much potential, especially when it comes to agriculture. And I'm very passionate about these conversations because it exposes us to how we are lagging in this system. Imagine a country as small as Netherlands being able to maximize their land, being able to maximize their agricultural produce because of the efficiency and introduction of mechanization in their farming. Because in fact, we always joke about it, saying in Nigeria, I think about it, if we have these tractors that can cover a large hectare of land and faster too, we'll be out of the farm before the bandits come, because this is one of the major challenges that have faced agricultural ecosystem here in Nigeria and has put us in the food crisis that we now experience, right? So if we are able to integrate mechanization into our agricultural system, I think that we'll do a lot better than we already are right now. And processing, I just might be getting into that as well. And it's so interesting to know that farms like the Jet farms are already into processing. So that which they produce on their farm, say ginger and pepper and all of that, they can be turned into powder form and exported out of Nigeria. Isn't that interesting? But yes, before we come to a close of the conversation today, I mean, you'd agree that it's been an absolute delight having Mr. Sharp here. He's been in Nigeria or been in the agricultural space for a period of 9 years, and trust me when I say he understands what he's talking about. Now let's go see some of the innovations that are making waves in the agricultural ecosystem. Stay with us. In today's evolving agricultural landscape, innovation continues to redefine how we grow, restore, and protect our environment. One such innovation is hydroseeding, a modern, efficient, and eco-friendly method of planting seeds. Hydroseeding involves spraying a slurry mixture of seeds, water, fertilizer, mulch, and a tackifying agent onto prepared soil. This mixture creates a protective, nutrient-rich layer that promotes rapid germination and even growth. Unlike traditional broadcasting or manual planting, hydroseeding ensures seeds stay in place, resisting wind, erosion, and runoff while maintaining optimal moisture levels. Originally developed for erosion control, hydroseeding has grown into a vital agricultural and environmental tool. It's now widely used to establish pastures, lawns, roadside vegetation, golf courses, and large-scale farms, saving both time and cost. In Nigeria and across Africa, where land degradation and desertification threaten food systems, hydroseeding offers a sustainable solution for land restoration and reforestation. It enables faster crop establishment on degraded soils and supports climate-smart agriculture by reducing soil loss and improving organic matter. Globally, countries like the United States, Australia, and China have adopted hydroseeding as part of a large-scale land rehabilitation project, providing that with the right mix of technology and science, we can green the earth faster and more efficiently. Hydroseeding is more than a planting technique. It is a promise of regeneration, resilience, and renewal for agriculture's future. All right. This is where we draw the curtain for the Green Line today. It's been an interesting episode, I would say that myself. I mean, I want to encourage everyone who is a part of the conversation every single week here. Start exploring agricultural opportunities that are available to you. Look within your environment. There must be something that you're able to get into. We're returning to our agricultural heritage. Don't be left out in the bandwagon, or don't be left out on the train. My name again is Martha Alu, and I will see you next time on the Green Line.